למען ציון לא אחשה, ולמען ירושלים לא אשקוט.
You are listening to Hebrew Voices with Nehemia Gordon. Thank you for supporting Nehemia's McCore Hebrew Foundation. Learn more at nehemiaswall.com.
Shalom, this is Nehemia Gordon with Hebrew Voices, and today I'm going to be meeting with the Grape Pickers. These are people who come from overseas, mostly I believe from the United States, and they've come to volunteer to help out Jews who are trying to grow crops on the land, and these Jews live in areas where it's difficult to get any kind of assistance, any kind of labor really. And so these people, they come from overseas, and the interesting thing about these people, they come as volunteers and they're not Jews. And we're going to find out today, why are these people coming from the U.S. and other places to pick grapes and pick olives for these Jewish farmers? It's just kind of strange. And I first heard about these guys a number of years back when I was watching this documentary. And in the documentary, they called them Zionist Christians, that these Zionist Christians come to help out Jews gather in their crops. Right now, as I'm speaking, I'm in a rental car and I'm driving and I'm leaving Jerusalem. I'm actually leaving Jerusalem right now. And as I leave Jerusalem, I am entering into the West Bank. There's this giant cement wall, I guess is the best way to describe it, with like pillboxes and guard towers. And I'm a little nervous. It's kind of funny. I'm going to meet these Americans who are out in this area where I'm nervous to go. And so I'm following the road here. I'm on Road 437. It's going to Bethel. That's Bethel, where Jacob slept on the pillow and, the stone, and he saw the angels going up to heaven and down from heaven. And then today, actually, where we're going is to some olive groves outside of Shiloh. Shiloh is where the Tabernacle stood. And then it was destroyed by the Philistines, actually, in the time of the high priest Eli, in the time of also the prophet Samuel. After the Battle of Aphek, the Philistines defeated the Israelites, and then we find out, actually, in the book of Jeremiah, that after the Battle of Aphek, they went and they destroyed the tabernacle at Shiloh. So I'm driving on this road, and this is a road where I'll tell you why I'm nervous. There have been a lot of Molotov cocktails thrown here at Jewish cars, a lot of stones that are thrown at the cars. And that's actually a pretty typical occurrence. In fact, my estimate is that there's probably a 50% chance that I'm going to get some stones through the window of this rental car. Hopefully the insurance will cover that. I hope it will. And they're going to be Molotov cocktails. I'm really hoping and praying not. But, I'm not going to be afraid in my own country to travel around. Well, I guess I am afraid, but I'm doing it anyway. So, and it's kind of weird because I say we're in the West Bank, but this is Jewish territory where I am right now. And I can see up there on the hilltop, maybe a few hundred feet from the road, is Palestinian territory. And that's where it gets a little, hairy, that we're in such close proximity. It's really hard to comprehend, unless you've been here, the closeness of the proximity in which the Jewish territory and the Palestinian territory are kind of intertwined. I grew up in Chicago, and it'd be like saying Skokie is, was enemy territory, or really more like Evanston was enemy territory. And if I'm driving on one side of McCormick, I'm in Israel, and if I'm on the other side of McCormick Avenue or Boulevard, then I'm in Palestine. And anyway, but they don't throw stones from from Skokie or Evanston at Chicago. Anyway, so here I am, and like right now, I've just passed on the road by a guy with a Palestinian license plate, and look, most of these guys they're fine. They're not going to do anything. Doesn't take too many though to actually cause trouble though. So anyway, I should be okay. I'm hoping I'm okay. I'm actually coming upon Kikar Adam, which is a traffic circle out here where there was a stabbing. They actually stabbed a female soldier, age of my niece, a little 19-year-old girl. She got stabbed last week. So, although there's probably been more stabbings in Jerusalem than there have been here. That's to be honest with you. So I should feel safer here, but, I guess I'm driving and the Molotov cocktails, but all right, look, I'm really excited about seeing these grape pickers. Today they're actually olive pickers, and the reason I'm excited is there's a verse. So there's this verse in the Bible that actually talks about, I think about the people I'm going to meet. It's in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 31, and verse 5, it says, "You shall yet plant vines upon the mountains of Samaria. The planter shall plant and shall eat them as common things." And you have to understand, when Jeremiah is writing this, Samaria has already been ethnically cleansed of all Jews. They were conquered by the Assyrians, and the Assyrians rounded up all the Jews and took them as prisoners all the way to Babylon and Assyria, and that area today, that's Iraq and Iran and possibly even Afghanistan. So when he's saying they're going to plant vines in Samaria, people are hearing Jeremiah in 586, 587 BCE, and they think he's crazy. What are you talking about? We're going to plant vines in Samaria. There's nobody left in Samaria. They're all exiles, prisoners in Babylon. And then he goes on, but his prophecy is it will happen. And the exciting thing is today it happened. We're going to go see vineyards and olive orchards that were planted, as was prophesied. Like he's saying this thing 586, 587 BCE, and it's come true. That to me is why I'm excited to go visit these people. But then interestingly, in now this is talking about, I think, Jews, Israelites, whatever you want to call them, and there we'll talk about that. But verse 6, Jeremiah 31, for there shall be a day that the watchman upon the mountain of Ephraim shall cry, arise ye, and let us go up to Zion unto Jehovah our God. So it's really interesting there. So what are they talking about? Who are these watchmen? And it's a very specific word in Hebrew. We have a word that refers to a military sense of a guard, that's shomer. And here the word is notzrim. And notzrim are specifically the people, the watchmen who watch over the ripe crops. You know, back in the old days, you had these, I guess you'd call them today, Bedouin, people who were kind of roaming around the countryside, and they'd come along and they'd find these ripe grapes and they'd steal them, or ripe olives, and they'd pillage them. And so when the crops became ripe, you actually had people who would camp out in the fields and guard the crops. And that's called notzrim in Hebrew. It's a specific type of guarding. Now, why is that so interesting to me? Because, he's talking about these notzrim. They're going to come up, and by the way, I'm right now at the traffic circle where the girl was stabbed, and I see what's going on. It's interesting. Until you're actually here, you don't get the full sense of it. So there's a big traffic jam here, so there's a great place to attack somebody. Before I was driving 100 kilometers an hour on the road, now I'm at a standstill. If somebody wanted to throw a Molotov cocktail at me or stone my car, there'd be nowhere I could go. I mean, it's gridlock here. And I want to make sure that I take the correct roads. So what excites me about this verse in the book of Jeremiah is, oh boy, that's a big truck. All right, you got to use your horn here. All right, now I'm on the highway. Let's see. I think I took the wrong turn. I'm very nervous. I'm scared, actually. It says I'm in Area A. Oh. Okay, I'm in the wrong area. I need to get the hell out of here. This is bad. I am turning around. Okay. So I just took a road that would take me into Palestinian territory. And there have been quite a few instances where Jews did the exact mistake I did. And they barely got out with their lives. Their cars burned. And there have been some who didn't get out with their lives. So I'm turning around. And now I'm really nervous because I literally just almost drove into a death trap. Because I don't really know where I'm going. I really have no clue where I'm going. I know where I want to go, which is to, let me see who these kids are. No, these are some Arabs. I'm really nervous here. I need to focus on what I'm doing. Okay, so now I think I'm back on the Jewish road. Okay. I was in Palestine just now. That's pretty scary for me. Okay. So anyway, I'm back on the road, and I'm heading up to Shiloh to meet with the Grape Pickers. And why am I excited? Because there's this verse in the book of Jeremiah I just read to you guys, and there it talks about how the notzrim, the people who guard the grapes, who guard the olives, the people who guard the ripe crops, they will come and say, let us go up to Jerusalem. Now, the context in the book of Jeremiah is he's talking about the hills of Samaria. And this was a time when there had been two kingdoms, the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. And the kingdom of Israel, the people who lived in that kingdom, they didn't, in the mountains of Ephraim, they didn't say, let's go to Jerusalem. Jerusalem was their enemy. It was like North Korea and South Korea. We say in Hebrew, lahavdil, like not to compare the two, but it's a good comparison in a way. It was like North Korea and South Korea. North Korea, the northern kingdom of Israel, had been conquered by the by the Assyrians and taken as captives to Assyria. And the people of Judea, the thought that one day Samaria will be resettled by Israelites, and not only will it be resettled, but they'll be at peace with the Jews of Jerusalem. What's Jeremiah talking about? People heard this and they thought he was crazy. And today the prophecy has been fulfilled. There's actually people who have planted the vineyards and planted the olive groves in the mountains of Ephraim, just like he talks about. The interesting thing, though, to me is these Nazarene, these people who guard the vineyards and the olive groves. And what's interesting to me about it is that word Nazarene could also be translated as Nazarenes. And it is. It means literally also Nazarenes. Nazarenes were the original Jewish followers of Jesus, or Yeshua. In Hebrew, he's called Yeshua HaNotzri, Jesus of Nazareth. And the original Jewish followers and some Gentile followers who kept the commandments of Moses, of the Torah, were called Nazarenes. And they continued up until around the 5th century, possibly later, but we know for sure that they were around in the 5th century. They were eventually persecuted by the Catholic Church for following the Torah and mainly for circumcising their children and keeping the seventh-day Sabbath. So think about that. The verse in Jeremiah says these vine watchers, the people who protect the vines, the people who protect the crops, they will be in the hills of Samaria, and they'll say, let us go up to Jerusalem. But it also could be Nazarenes. And it excites my imagination that there are these Gentiles who are Nazarenes. Is it possible that the Nazarenes are part of God's prophecy and plan for mankind? Now, you ask any Jew and he'll say, of course not. They are, Nazarenes are a breakaway religion from Judaism. They're heretics. They believe in a Messiah that Jews don't believe in, we're waiting for the Messiah to come. They say the Messiah's already come and will return. But I don't know. I'm excited by the possibility that these people could be a fulfillment of prophecy. I'm not saying they are, but it could be. And I want to meet them and find out what they're all about. What are these Nazarenes doing here? And do they even know that there's this prophetic verse about what they're actually doing, whether they're the ones being specifically spoken of or not? Did they know that their exact activities are being described in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 31? I got to go meet these guys. I'm excited. I hope I don't get killed here. I'm on this road. There's an armored personnel carrier in front of me, Israeli, so I feel a lot safer right now. A bus is passing me in the opposite direction, and it has bulletproof armoring. So, and I'm here in this little Hyundai Getz rental car. So, all right, guys, I'm going to focus on my driving for now and hope I don't get lost and, end up in a place that's too dangerous. And we're going to go talk to the Nazarenes in Shiloh. I'm speaking here to David Johnson, and we are in this hillside in Samaria. And I don't know if you can, let me let the people hear the sound of the beating. They're beating the trees, the olive trees, to get the olives to come down. They beat the tree and the olive falls down, and that's actually described in the Torah. In the book of Deuteronomy, it talks about beating the olive trees. And there's another word which is translated roughly as to milk the olive trees, which is when you have the final olives left after they beat, they'll then come and they'll do this milking motion, which removes the final olive. So I love seeing this because the Hebrew language comes alive. As a city slicker, I don't get to experience this all the time. So tell us about what are you doing? Who are you? What you doing here?
Yeah, my name is David. I'm from Canada, and I'm really excited to be here, helping to accommodate this trip and leading people around the land of Israel, around the hills of Samaria. We're just helping to get this harvest off, and it's really exciting to us.
Now, I speak this man's language, so I'm going to attempt to communicate to him in his dialect. How are you doing, eh?
Oh, yeah, I'm doing great, eh? It's a beautiful day.
So what brought you from the peaceful tranquility of Canada to this West Bank hillside? And I don't call it the West Bank. That's what the politicians call it. This is Samaria. It's the ancient region of Israel, Judea and Samaria. What brought you here to Samaria? Canada is such a nice place, although it's actually kind of cold there. I don't know why you'd want to live in Canada, but what brought you here?
Well, it's the beginning of November right now, and it's getting cold in Canada, but what brought me here is really delving into the Bible in a greater way, delving into the prophets of Israel and realizing that they weren't just talking about their time, they were talking about our time, and just connecting with the past, the present, and the future of the Bible in the land of Israel. It's the only way to connect with the Bible. We realize when we're reading the stories, we're right here.
Wow.
We see the Bible as a a whole book, and we just want to read it as a whole book with real continuity from beginning to end. So we see everything tying together really well, and we just see the God of Israel giving this book to the Jewish people. They've been the faithful keepers of the Bible for so many millennia. We want to be here to learn from the Jewish people. We want to be here to assist the Jewish people in the harvest and everything that's going on with the restoration of the land of Israel.
So you see what's going on here as part of fulfillment of prophecy of restoration.
Absolutely.
Wow. So what are some prophecies, if you know off the top of your head, that you want to share?
Yeah, well, off the top of my head, I think of a few. When Israel was in real times of desolation, God said, you'll still plant vineyards on the mountains of Samaria. And he said, foreigners will be your vine dressers. We look at some of those prophecies coming about today. During those times of desolation, God gave them as a sign of restoration to the people of Israel. So now I look back and I'm like, wow. In our generation, we're seeing this sign given from the God of Israel, and it's coming about. So we see this is the time of restoration.
So you just really excited me right now, and I'll tell you why. Because that prophecy about the foreigners coming and working the land and being vine dressers, I'm not sure it's the correct translation, but something like working the vineyards. So I did this program with my friend Keith Johnson, who's a Methodist pastor, and I think we looked at that passage, and it was controversial because some Jews read that passage in the Middle Ages and they said, what is this about? The Gentiles are going to be our slaves? They're going to work the vines while we do something else. They didn't understand what it was about. And you're telling me that you guys are actually doing this, and it's not because you're slaves, and because it is what the prophets spoke about. They spoke about how these people from the nations would come and they'd work in the agriculture of Israel for the Jews. And you're actually doing it not out of servitude, but out of love. Like, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, Nehemia, I've got to tell you about these families here. These families saved for years to pay to come and volunteer to assist the Jewish people in restoring the land of Israel, planting vineyards, harvesting olives, picking the grapes, whatever we can do to help. I mean, even just moving rocks, like back-breaking work, these families are here to help. And I'm inspired by the people I work with here. There are hundreds of individuals. And in the last 10 years, we've brought 2,000 volunteers. And every year, we just bring tons of people, and it's exciting.
Wow, that's amazing. Anything else you want to share with the people?
We just want to invite you. I mean, this is an amazing place to be.
So who can join this?
We'll just connect with our website, connect with www.hayovel.com. Take a look at it, click on the volunteer or get involved button. Just take a look at our trips coming up. We have a pruning trip for men. We have a harvest trip planned for next year. And it's amazing.
So anybody can join this. Any Christian can join this. You don't have to be part of a certain denomination, or like I know I have some listeners who are Catholics. Are they welcome to come?
Oh yeah, we've had Catholics. Very pro-Israel Catholics. Wow. Like there's some really excited Catholics.
So all you have to do really to be part of your organization is come with love and a desire to serve and be Christian, I guess, right?
Yeah, you just got to apply online. We have a little application process. Yeah. We'll get connected with you, give you the information you need. It's pretty simple.
That's awesome. And how long do people typically come for?
Our shortest trip we offer is 3 weeks. To our longest trip, it can span up to 12 weeks, depending if someone's coming for their first time or not.
Wow. So guys, I highly recommend this. A lot of people come over here and they'll do the bus tour, and they'll and they'll go on the air-conditioned bus from place to place. And here you actually get to walk. I'll be honest with you, most Israelis don't get to experience this. Most people in Israel who are living in the comfort of Tel Aviv in the cafes, they wouldn't dare even drive through these hills. I'm not trying to be funny. They're kind of like the people outside of Israel. They're afraid to come here, and I just feel so peaceful here. And this really is a blessing to be part of this, to walk through these hills and to get your hands in the trees and in the soil, and to be part of this, fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Well, thank you very much, David.
For sure, Nehemia. It's an honor.
Shalom.
Shalom.
I'm talking here to Olivia. Olivia, where are you from?
I'm from Missouri.
You're from Missouri? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're a pregnant woman who's out here among the olive trees, beating olive trees. What are you doing here, Olivia? What are you and your baby doing here?
I came here because I love Israel, and I don't know, it's just a passion that I have to be here and to be a part of the restoration of the land of Israel. And I want my family, my children to be a part of that as well, to grow up in that.
Wow. So your unborn child is literally being a part of this prophetic fulfillment before the child's even born. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What's your name?
I'm Luke Hilton.
Yeah, and where are you from, Luke?
I'm from Missouri in the States.
And what are you doing here in this mountainside in Samaria, beating an olive tree with is this a bamboo stick or
Yes, sir,
a reed
yeah.
or something?
Yeah, so I've been here for several months. We just actually finished the grape harvest yesterday, and we're now harvesting olives. So what we're doing, like part of the volunteer organization here, is we just bring Christians from all over the world just to love and to serve and to bless and to help in the farms here, in the agriculture communities for the Jewish farmers here.
So what motivated you to come from Missouri to here? Like why?
So it actually started when I was 16 years old. I grew up in a very conservative Christian Bible-believing home and didn't know a whole lot about Israel, but the Wallers who run Hayovel were good friends of my family, and they invited us to come over, and I saw it as a very exciting opportunity as a young man to see the place where my Bible was written and just get connected to the roots of my faith. But I don't think I understood too much on a deeper level about Israel. I came here not knowing much at all.
So what do you know now?
So my whole perspective and my faith has totally been changed. And you could say that the Bible and my whole faith has become, sometimes I like to say it's become like 3D. Like it's totally come alive for me because like not only have I come here to serve and to bless the land and the people of Israel and to build them up in the agriculture here communities, but like my faith, and I've been blessed like more than I could ever bless anybody or the land here. Like what I have seen and gained a deeper understanding of my faith and the Bible and the prophecies and everything has been totally like exponentially grown. And what I see and hear now is just so much of a deeper level. There's no place like Israel, and especially the heartland of Israel, like Judea and Samaria, what the world would want to call the West Bank. But what we know, like this is the biblical heartland of Israel. This is where most of the Bible was written or took place, like right here.
Wow. So that's interesting. So you say you came here to bless Israel and you got blessed yourself.
That's right. Yeah, very much so.
That's amazing. So tell me how this fits into your understanding of prophecy. I'm Jewish. I'm not Christian. Explain to me. I know a lot of the Jews who hear about you being here would say this must be some kind of a ploy to convert us to Christianity. So what is the fulfillment of prophecy that what are you doing here?
Right. So first of all, the whole organization and all the volunteers we bring here, like sole purpose and mission is just to love and to serve and to bless the people here. We do not do any sort of evangelism or proselytation, anything like that. But back to prophecy, like when I first came, I didn't have much of an understanding about prophecy because I read Jeremiah and Isaiah and Ezekiel, and it was a lot of stuff that's hard to understand, like it's hard to connect to sometimes. But my first and my second trip to Israel, when I came here and I touched the vineyards, which Jeremiah said vineyards were going to be planted right here on these mountains 3,000 years ago.
Jeremiah 31:5. I told the people about that on my way up here.
And Ezekiel said the mountains are going to blossom and bloom. And Amos and Joel said the agriculture is all going to come back and there's going to be wine dripping from these mountains again and there's going to be oil coming back. So like when I actually touched those things and I also participated in them, Isaiah said there's going to be foreigners coming and helping in this. That's where my faith like connected to real-time prophecy, and I actually saw it happening right here today. And since then, there's just like everything you see and touch here is a reality happening right in front of your eyes.
Wow. And that's really interesting to me because I know some of the Jewish sources in the Middle Ages, these were Jews who actually by law weren't allowed to engage in agriculture. They were forced to have city jobs because they were basically slaves of the prince or the king that they lived under, and he wanted to keep an eye on them and also to keep them separate from the major, population, which was farmers. And I know they read some of these prophecies about, like, for example, the good figs, and they said, that's obviously a metaphor. And here we are, we're standing among the crops.
It's not a metaphor
and we're
anymore.
seeing it literally coming to life, not in some metaphorical way, but literally it's happening.
I tell you, the stories of the farmers that we work with, I think probably 10 farmers here all over Judea and Samaria. The stories of these farmers, they're not like generations of farmers. These are guys that had city jobs. Like one example, he lived in a big city. He knew nothing about farming, but he was a religious Jewish man, and he read the prophecies, and he saw that Jeremiah said there's supposed to be vineyards, and he could look up to these mountains from the coast, and he said, one day I want to plant a vineyard on the mountains of Samaria. And today he not only has many dunams, acres of vineyards, but he has award-winning wines that are winning competitions all over the world. And that's the story story of every single farmer here.
Wow. Yeah, and I want to tell people who are listening the context of what you just said when he looks up to the mountains. So the major population center of Israel, Israel really is a megacity, which is Greater Tel Aviv. Probably maybe a third of the population lives in Tel Aviv metropolitan area. And so when you say looks up to the mountains, I could just imagine he's sitting there in the cafe in Tel Aviv, sipping his latte and, with his nice, comfy middle-class job. And he looks up and something in his heart is stirred, something in the ancient prophecies of our people, of the Jewish people, of the Bible, about how you can actually grow crops up there. And that is a fulfillment of those prophecies.
But everything that these farmers have done has been 100% faith. Wow. And they've done it because the prophecies and God said it would happen. But today, every single one of them are defying physics. They're defying the agricultural experts, and every single one of their products are winning medals, and they're the top line of products. So you mean
Jewish wine isn't Manischewitz anymore?
No, not anymore. It's slowly.
I like Manischewitz. I'll be honest, but I have no taste when it comes to wine. And you're actually saying Israel is producing not just growing grapes to fulfill a prophecy. It's actually, these grapes are blessed. They're award-winning wine. 2,000
years ago, you go anywhere in this whole area, you'll find wine presses, you'll find olive presses. So they think a lot of this would have had vineyards and olive groves 2,000 years ago, and they would have serviced some of the products for the offerings for the temple. And today we see that these things are slowly becoming back, some of the finest products all over the world.
Yeah, and one of the things that, I don't know if you know this, is that when the Turks ruled this country for 400 years, you know about this? They had a law that taxed land based on the number of trees. Right. And so what the Arabs did here is they cut down all the trees. They deforested the whole country. And anywhere where the Jews haven't come and planted trees, just about anywhere, is essentially desert. And I was on this hike a while back, a couple years back, and we were hiking in the mountains of Judea in an area where the deciduous Mediterranean forest was allowed to naturally grow back. They weren't doing any agriculture there. They were just letting it naturally grow. And we were walking through this thicket, and there was thorns everywhere. And it's not like a forest in in the U.S., but it was a thick forest, a Mediterranean style forest. And we came to this hilltop, and below on the hill was a gate, a fence, and it was the border between the Israeli territory and the Palestinian territory. And everything beyond the Israeli gate was desert. Mm-hmm. And that's because they cut down the trees, they use it for firewood, and they overgraze it with sheep. And Israel lets things grow and encourages things to grow. And our cousins turn things into deserts.
Right. For sure.
So and for you to be part of this is amazing to me. I'm excited. This is prophecy. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Shalom. I am here in the hills of Samaria, in the mountain of Ephraim, with Joshua Waller from the Hayovel organization. Shalom, Joshua.
How are you doing?
Joshua, that doesn't sound like an accent that we normally hear in Samaria. Where are you from?
Originally from Tennessee.
You're from Tennessee.
Farming Hills of Tennessee, that's me.
And so you run this Hayovel organization, the director of operations. What do you guys do here?
Here today we're actually harvesting olives. We just finished the harvest of the vineyards, which was very, very awesome. We harvested about over 300 tons of grapes this year.
You personally did 300 tons?
This crew, the 250, 300 volunteers we had this year.
Wow, 250, 300 people were here. Mm-hmm. And these are all Christians, mostly where? From the U.S. or?
This year we have, it's all over the place. You have from South Africa, from all over Europe, as far north, Latvia, like all over the place. 25 countries participated.
25 countries participated here. All Christians coming to pick olives and grapes and do other. What else do you guys do?
That's our main deal. We're here. We're helping in the vineyards and olive groves. That's the main agriculture happening on the mountains of Samaria right now. So that's our main deal. We'll help pomegranates a little bit here and there, flowers or things like that. So that's the farming here. We have one farmer here that's cool. He's got flowers, and I always tell people it gets crazy. Redemption's on its way in when you hear stories like this, because you got this ancient town of Shiloh I can see right now. We're standing here, but just a farmer to the side. You see some greenhouses over here. Yeah, he has tulips. And the crazy, it's okay for somebody in Shiloh to have tulips. It's crazy enough that the restored town of Shiloh is back after these thousands of years of desolation. The ancient ruins of Shiloh, there's a beautiful Jewish community sitting there on top of it.
And Shiloh is where the Tabernacle was. That was actually the capital, the functional capital of the tribes of Israel at one point.
So, incredibly restored place that the Jewish people are back here. And but more than that, you have this guy that's planted flowers. Not only just flowers, but tulips. And from here, You wouldn't believe where he exports them to. Where does he export them to?
To Holland?
To Holland.
No way!
He exports his tulips to Holland.
What?
From this little place, Shiloh.
You're kidding me.
So I love that story because it says exactly what's happening here in the restoration of Israel's agriculture. Right now we're in the olive groves. There's olives that are spread out all over these mountains. There's vineyards that are back. Everything that was spoken of in Joel 2 is back. And Joel says it as in a form that it's going to be the desolation. Today, all the things that were spoken of as the desolation are here, which means we're no longer at the time of desolation. We're now in the time of restoration, and the signs are here in the land to prove it.
So, wow. So why do you as a Christian come to help the Jews here? I know there's some Christians who come and they help out the Palestinians. And the reason they're helping the Palestinians is at least the way they describe it, what I've heard, is that, they're poor, it's their third world kind of conditions. Why are you helping out the Jews here in Samaria?
So the fact is that these people need the help. These guys here don't have any help. And actually with, as we all know, BDS and a lot of the things that are coming against the Jews, which is really...
Tell my listeners what BDS is. They may not know.
BDS is the boycotting of Israeli products here from Judea and Samaria. And that's terrible. We saw these trends happen right before the Holocaust. This was the same exact trends, and everybody says it's not on our watch. Guys, this is our watch. We're not going to allow it to happen. We're not allowing our sphere of friends to allow it to go into this direction. If we got friends in government places, which we do, we're making impact there. And
I want to share that, my perspective on that as a Jew. And it's interesting that you say that. I hadn't made that connection, that one of the first things the Nazis did when they took over Germany, it was the Nuremberg laws. And even before the Nuremberg laws, they boycotted Jewish products, Jewish stores. And what you're saying is that is alive and well, that idea of boycotting Jewish products. And the irony, what I've heard from Palestinian sources, is they suffer more than the Jews because, it hurts the entire economy. And the poorer people get hurt worse.
Right.
So you're here to help the Jews because they need the help. But you're a Christian. So some of my listeners, they're like, what? Certainly my Jewish listeners are confused. Why would Christians come and help Jews harvest olives and grapes and pomegranates?
It's not a bad question, and everybody asks the same question. I usually give a similar answer. I'll tell you this. Grew up in the hills of Tennessee. We're a farming family. And that was our total background, farming and we're really close to the land. And as well as that, we also grew up as a Bible-believing family, Christian family, and reading through the Bible as many times as I have and just being very connected with it. I tell people I've never read once in the entire Bible anything about being a farmer in Tennessee. Everything that I've read is about being a farmer and seeing like the climax of any farmer in the world for me would be to be sitting where we're sitting right now and to be a part of the biggest farming expedition in world history.
Wow.
This is what the prophets saw. Like what we're seeing today, prophets can only dream about. They only envision, they only encourage the people that one day we're going to see what me and you're sitting here in the middle of right now. And that's a huge honor for us.
So that's really important. What you're saying is that the agriculture of the land of Israel has prophetic significance. When the Jewish nation, Judea, was destroyed, it was the desolation of the agriculture that was the sign that the people were being punished. And it was a promise that the agriculture would be restored that was a sign of the redemption and the restoration.
Right.
And you said we're living in the restoration, and this is living proof of it.
What does that mean? Look at Ezekiel 36. He's going to bring the people back. And what was it also in that chapter? He says the vines are going to shoot forth. They're going to shoot forth their branches.
Wow.
For the people are coming home. And this is exactly what we're seeing happen
literally
today.
happening here.
Yeah. And this is the sign of the biggest sign to me of the redemption is one. There's a couple. One is the Jewish people returning. There's more people inside Jerusalem today than ever, more Jewish people inside Jerusalem than ever in history before. Wow. Like we're sitting upon the most climatic time of all history concerning the Jewish people, the restoration of Israel, and this whole redemption process. We're at a climax right now. There's never seen a time in history that looks like it does right now. Even though at the same time, we've never seen a climax of the enemies as great as they are. At the same exact time, the climax of they're rising together. We've got this major climatic surge coming out in the good and the holy and like the righteousness and like the blessing flowing from the land of Israel. But at the same time, we've got this climatic, like ugly, demonic, like rage against it. And they're both raising their heads. Wow. Right now, we're seeing it massively. Even from where we're standing, we're seeing the Jewish people coming, restoring the land, building it up in every form of the prophecy. It's all here. So for us as a people, we're excited about standing with the Jewish people, even though it doesn't look so good right now. It's not the cool thing to do. It looks terrible. We're in for the long haul, and we're ready to stand and make an impact here on these mountains as best we can.
Hallelujah.
My name's Joshua, and I refuse to look at anything except through the eyes of Joshua, Caleb kind of approach, right?
Okay.
And I think that goes for everybody. If you're a believer in the world, you believe in God, this is the way we have to look at Israel. We have to look at it not through the lens that the terrorism and the evil wants us to look through. Okay. We've got to look through a lens of the promises of God. We need to look through, we can't look at the enemies and say, oh, the giants, oh, they're crazy big, it'll never happen. We've got to look through the lens that says, no, God promised it. This is the story. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. And for us today, we're gonna have to take on this Joshua and Caleb approach to the land of Israel. And that is so important for us to really get a hold of this.
So remind my listeners about, remind them about Joshua and Caleb versus the other 10 spies.
Yeah, so the Joshua and Caleb, they had the good report. They came back into the land. What are the other 10 guys? They said, no, the giants in the land.
They said, they're giants. We can't defeat them. What was the significance of the giants? So Caleb saw that and Joshua saw that, and they said, this is a rich land that can sustain giants. It can feed giants. Yeah. If there isn't enough food, everybody's going to be short. They're not getting enough nutrition. And the other people said, oh, there's giants. We can never defeat them. So they both looked at the same evidence and they drew different conclusions. And you're saying we should have the spirit of Joshua and Caleb and bring a good report of the land.
And come here. And that applies directly today. Like there's no reason that exactly the same story is here today. We have the opportunity to either be a part of the promises of God here in the land of Israel, the land of the living, or side in with the nations and just go along with the flow, which is not going to end so great. Maybe it looks nice, looks okay right now, but that's not the end of the story. We know that Israel becomes a nation of its. We know the restoration process of the redemption of all of Israel is coming. Like the Jewish people are flooding from every corner of the world. It's a massive miracle of God to bring these people back, and we need to see it that way. We can't let the terrorism that's happening here throw us off base and allow us not to participate. That's the last thing in the world that anybody that believes in God needs to do. We need to, that's the enemies. That's why they do terrorism. There's a story. The story is Ezra and Nehemiah. What's happening today is an exact outline of what happened in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. What happened then? What they got, even down to like building freezes and stuff like this. Like it's right. All the way down. It's exactly the same story. And so today we're seeing that. What are we going to do? Are we going to actually be the Ezra and Nehemiah? Are we actually going to come and just face that opposition? And at the end of the day, what? They're going to have a temple. They're going to build the walls of Jerusalem, and they're going to restore the place, even in the face of opposition. So it's not a time to back down. It's a time to put the sword on your side and work with one hand while you have the other hand on your weapon. Yeah. That's the time we're living in. It's not a time to shrink back. It's a time to press forward. Yeah. And that's what the nation of Israel is doing. And that's what I'm encouraging people across the world to do in support with Israel. And to dig into that story, Ezra and Nehemiah, check out what those lines are, and you're going to be shocked to see the resemblance.
Well, one of the guys' name is Geshem the Arab, and one of the other people was Sanballat. And the story, the part about the story I love, and I give credit to my friend Keith Johnson for teaching me about this. I'd read it, but I didn't see the significance. So there's the story where Sanballat and his companions, they invite Nehemia, who I'm named after, Nehemiah, they invite him to come down to the plains of Ono for a peace conference. And really, it's a trap to kill him. And he sends back the message, as my friend Keith says, oh no, because the plains of Ono. Oh no, I'm busy doing God's work. And that was really his response. I'm too busy building the wall around the city, building God's city. I don't have the time or the energy to deal with your negativity. And I know anyway it's a trap. And wow, what an amazing parallel today. That's incredible. And that's how you see it. You see it in these prophetic terms. I'm really encouraged by that because I see everything around me in Israel is in prophetic terms. And so to hear that from a Christian who loves Israel, that really encourages me. And I hope it encourages the listeners. How can people get involved in your organization and what you do?
So there's a website, hayovel.com. It's Hayovel.com. That's
and we'll
Hayovel.
Post a link on nehemiaswall.com, hayovel.com.
Just means the Jubilee. It's an agricultural term. We all know it. We have the Shemitahs and the Jubilees, and it's all an agricultural deal. Yeah. That's what we're all about. We're about the restoring Israel's agriculture, and the best way that we can possibly be involved is what we want to do. So to get involved, all the information's on our website. Okay. And
yeah. What I love about your name, I don't know if this was intentional or not, is that in the Jubilee, all the people who are dispossessed from their land get to return to their ancestral land. And that's what we're seeing in front of us. The Jews have returned to their ancestral land, and these people from around the world are coming here. These people who love the God of Israel and the people of Israel, these Christians, are coming to help them maintain their possession of this land that's finally been restored to them after this long and dark exile.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why we're so excited that God would even favor us to be able to be a part. Like, this is our such a really a miracle for us, and we're humbled by it that we could be that God you'd favor us in such a way that we could come here just to have the opportunity to just touch the dust. Wow. I mean, because really, you look in the Psalms 112, I believe it talks about or 102:12. It talks about the showing favor to the dust of Israel, and it's like, this is such an honor. I mean, since when did anybody pick up dust and just so
you getting your hands in the soil and the dirt, that's a prophetic fulfillment from the book of Psalms. And I'll share the story. And when I first came to Israel in 1990, before I actually made Aliyah, before I immigrated, I was 17 years old, and I went to be a volunteer on a kibbutz. And, I don't know if you know this, or you probably do, that what you're doing here, in a sense, is a continuation of a very old tradition in Israel, where people come from around the world to volunteer in the agriculture of Israel. Especially, it started out on kibbutzim. On the kibbutz I worked on, all the volunteers were Jews. And the next kibbutz over, they were all like these Scandinavian Christians. I think they were there to party. I was there to work the land, and when I first got there, they put me in this factory, it was really good conditions. It was air conditioned. I had a 9-to-5 job, got lots of breaks. It was like a really cushy job. They thought this is the perfect job for some middle-class American. And after 3 days, I went to my supervisors on the kibbutz, and I said, guys, I didn't come here to work in a factory. I came here to get my hands in the soil of the earth of the land of Israel. And what inspired me was reading in the Torah all those commandments where it talks about, and it will be when you come to the land which I give you. And I thought, I grew up in Chicago, and I'm thinking, the land he gave us, it's all about the agriculture of the land. There's all these commandments related to the agriculture. And so I was really, excited. And I used to get up really early, started work at 4:50 in the morning, worked till it was too hot to work anymore. And I loved every minute of it. It was really, to me, a prophetic fulfillment every day, everything I did in the fields. And I would come home covered in dirt. Before I would eat lunch, I would have to spend 5 or 10 minutes washing my hands and my arms from the dirt. And look, I'm a city slicker. I'm not used to that, but I loved it. It was alive. I was alive. It was real. I was experiencing what my ancestors experienced here in the land of Israel. And you get to be part of that, is what you're saying. And that's one of the things you're doing here. Now, I got to ask this question, and it's something I know a lot of my listeners are wondering. Are you part of some denomination that you're here? Can anybody join this? What is your orientation? Do you have to be part of some kind of specific group or movement to get involved in Hayovel?
The answer is no.
Okay.
We're about we're really, everybody tries to put people in boxes, right?
I love putting people in boxes.
What we're doing is large. Mm-hmm. It's large scale. We are totally focused in on bringing Christians specifically to Israel. Mm-hmm. So that's our target. We want to bring Christians. We're all Christian for sure. Mm-hmm. That's who we are, but we're not narrowed down into a denomination at all. If you love Israel and believe in the promises of God for the people of Israel, the restoration of Israel's agriculture, and the list goes on and on and on. Believe in God and the promises of God for this place. We want you here, and there's no box that we can wrap any smaller. It's a big one.
And you were telling me before we recorded this that you've had people who are Catholics and Protestants and all kinds of different denominations and perspectives, and everyone is welcome as long as the goal is to come and serve and bless the people here. And how many different volunteer organizations are there in Judea and Samaria for Christians?
There's one.
You're the only one.
There's only one, and this is it. Yeah. Sadly, really.
And how does the world see what you're doing? Because I see this as amazing fulfillment of biblical prophecy.
We're here to build up the Jewish state, and it's a positive thing. We're here to see the Jewish state built up, and by building up the Jewish state, these neighbors will see prosperity. Mm-hmm. That's the fact of the matter. The world will refuse to believe that, and they'll call it apartheid state. They'll call it all this garbage. And the fact of the matter is if the Jewish people are restored back to their land, there'll be peace brought to the world. Mm-hmm. And that's something that nobody will understand, and they're going to fight it tooth and nail. That's part of the prophecy. Wow. This is what's going to happen. But the fact is when the Jewish people are back in their land, and the people surrounding, the nation surrounding, under that governing power of the Jewish hold on this land, there'll be peace.
Wow. And I got to say, from where we're standing here, I see a Jewish town up on this one hill over here, and another Jewish town over there, and we're on this mountainside, and there's no Arabs here. No one's being dispossessed of their land. I was visiting in Singapore, and they have all these different ethnic groups that live together, and they coexist, and they have this paradise. And, Gaza could be that paradise if the Gazans just willed it. If they didn't want to live as terrorists, if they wanted to live in peace, they could be the a major port for the entire Eastern Mediterranean, and they could be all filthy rich, and we could be going and working for them. But that's not what they've chosen to do. They've chosen to wage war. Let's get off of politics. I want to ask you a religious question. So a lot of people hearing this, I think a lot of my Jewish listeners especially, they'll hear you've come to bless Israel, and they'll say, well, the way to bless Israel, every Christian knows, is to convert the Jews. In fact, I saw this meme on the internet recently where it said, you're not blessing Israel unless you share Jesus. So what is your perspective on that? Does your organization evangelize? Is that what you're here for? What is the purpose?
I would say, first off, absolutely not. We're not here to evangelize. We're here to be a blessing.
I got to stop you. So they're dragging here this bag. How much does that weigh? There's a lot. So there's 3 men, I guess 2 boys and a man, who are dragging. I want to get a picture of it. Can you turn around and smile, or are you too much in your work? They're dragging these olives. A lot of olives. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. So no, our policy is here, and our stance is we want to be a blessing to the Jewish people. For once, after 2,000 years of crazy history, we're not here to bring any of our theology or doctrine. We're solely 100% coming here to be a blessing and to serve the Jewish people and help in their fields. That's our 100% state. There's no kind of agenda. There's no nothing except the one and only goal is to see these farms flourish and to see the agricultural cycles be once again restored on the mountains of Israel. Yeah. And that's our total 100% motive. If there's people that come to Hayovel and they have different motives, for one, they'll be on the next plane out. 2,
so you don't tolerate if you got a volunteer who says, yeah, I know they say we're not going to evangelize, but as soon as I get there, I'm going to start witnessing.
Somebody shows up here with a suitcase load of tracts, within hours they're gone. Wow. We're very clear and we're very precise, and they know that before. Totally, yeah. Okay. It's a huge application process. Okay. That's not what our organization does. What we are here to do is to be a blessing and to serve these Jewish communities, and that is being we're able to be such a strength here. Like right now, especially with the world the way it is, a lot of people are not coming to Israel. Sadly, they're not looking through the lens of Joshua and Caleb. They're looking through the lenses of the 10, and they're saying, "Oh, I'm scared. I'm not." Just the other day, I had somebody tell me, "Oh, I'm sorry. I prayed about it, and I don't think I'm going to be able to go out there." And you know what I would say? I would say, please, if you're scared, do not come. Don't come if you're scared, but start praying a little more and figure out what spirits you actually got going on inside. You need to understand who you are and what God has really required of you, and get on the right side of the fence and be a part of this deal. And that's our goal. We're here to strengthen and undergird. That's our 100% mission.
Now, how many years did you say you were coming here?
I've been here for 10 years.
And are you afraid here?
Absolutely not.
I mean, I got to say, I was a little nervous coming on the road. And the big thing is that I actually took the wrong turn at Kikar Adam and turned into the Palestinian area.
That's the road to Ramallah.
I almost went into Ramallah. Yeah. I went past the sign that said you are entering Area A. And I thought, well, that can't be right because nobody stopped me.
Everybody does.
Surely that can't be, the Palestinian. And it was Area A, not B, which is full Palestinian control. Israeli army doesn't go in there. And then the next sign said in Hebrew, no entrance for Israelis. And I did a quick U-turn on the highway, and I turned right back. And once I got back on the road, then I felt a lot safer. Right. I guess a lot of people make that mistake. There should be a sign there that says no left turn for Israelis. Right. That would probably just invite more people to turn left, though.
Right, exactly.
We don't like to follow rules in Israel.
Yeah.
So I love what you shared, because what you're saying is you're not an obstacle for peace. You're actually a viable, realistic route to peace. The peace process that's been going on since 1993, that's led to so much suffering and death. And what you're saying is, here's a way where we can actually have peace. That this will eventually end in peace. The prophets tell us that, and we invite the neighbors who are quite far away, but we'll have to do it over a really loud loudspeaker or over the internet, to invite these people to be part of this, to live in harmony with the people here, and not to choose war, to choose peace. And I love that you are a real viable option for peace.
Yeah, I mean, that's the topic of the world. Everybody's trying to bring peace to the Middle East, and it's something that contains most of media today. Like, it's unbelievable that the people around the world are so focused on this. It's like there's much worse crises going around the world, but it's a God thing. All the nations are beginning to focus on Israel for a reason. Like all the prophets talk about this great light that's inside Israel. And if you look at it, it's crazy to look at it this way. But at the same time, the morals of the whole entire world are going in the dumps. They're going just totally down. Israel's the exact opposite's happening. There's a return to God happening here. Wow. There's a building of family. There's a return to life. And I mean, you're going to have small sections of people trying to fit in with groups around the world, but that's a minority here in Israel. Here in Israel, you have 99% fasting, like in the 90% fasting on Yom Kippur. You have a culture that is godly, that's loving family, that loves family values, and it's only growing. If you look at the percentage in Israel, it's only growing. There's not another country in the world that's growing in these good morals. Every other country is slowly, not even slowly now, it's almost like a waterfall just collapse around the world, especially in the United States. There's a collapse of moral dignity and goodness. Here in Israel, it's the opposite. And it's as if God is putting Israel in a place to be that light, to be the light into all these nations that are just going off the cliff. And I think it's an amazing time to live in, and to actually have my feet inside Israel is a real honor to be able to stand in this place where we know that God is going to bring, he's bringing this redemption. And we're seeing it. We're seeing it even, and a lot of people don't get it, but if we can truly get a hold of that, when a prophet says you're going to plant vines in the mountains of Samaria, you're going to see an agricultural redemption, and you see it, it means something.
Hallelujah. Amen. And I want to read that prophecy you just quoted. It's from Jeremiah chapter 31. And verse 5, it says, "You shall yet plant vines upon the mountains of Samaria." And that's literally what you're part of. And it goes on, and it says, "The planters shall plant and shall eat them as common things." And verse 6, "For there shall be a day that the watchman upon the Mount Ephraim," that's where we're standing right now, "watchman on the Mount Ephraim shall cry, 'Arise ye and go up to Zion unto the Lord our God.'" And when Jeremiah was saying these things, it was a time when Jerusalem was under siege, and they were clearing people out of Israel. And at that time, the 10 tribes who lived in this area where we are right now in Samaria, they had already been taken into exile as prisoners to Assyria by the Assyrians. And Jeremiah was in Jerusalem, surrounded by Babylonians, talking about how they're going to, not only will we be back in this land and we'll be buying and selling land and planting, but there'll be a time when our brothers in the northern kingdom, who are our enemies at one time, they're going to plant their vineyards, and then they're going to look up to Jerusalem, which they saw as an enemy. You know, the kingdom of Israel looked to the kingdom of Judah as an enemy for about 300 or 400 years. At that time, in this prophetic period that he talks about, they're going to come up to Jerusalem like they weren't doing before they were sent into exile. And people must have heard Jeremiah and thought the guy was nuts. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about, because when I read this, I read it in Hebrew. And one of the things that really excites my imagination, although I say this with a lot of hesitation, I'll be honest with you, one of the things that excites my imagination is that word watchman in verse 6. Because the Hebrew word for watchman, there's two types of watchmen in Hebrew. There's people who watch the wall, that's like a military function. And then there are watchmen who watch the crops. And there are people who, when the crops are ripe, back in the old days, if you didn't have somebody watch over the crops, somebody would come in the middle of the night and steal your crops. You know, there were people wandering through the hills and Bedouin and things like that. Especially grapes, they'd come, they just steal your grapes, and you'd wake up in the morning and they'd still be gone. Is it still like that?
Totally like that.
Is it seriously?
Wow. Today, if we don't come pick these olives, in many areas, the Arab community surrounding will come and take the olives.
They'll just steal the olives. Exactly. So you got to be, so they would put these watchmen in. The Hebrew word for watchmen who look over the crops is a different word than for the people who look over the wall. The word is notzrim. And what excites me about that is notzrim are the watchers over the crops, but it also, in modern Hebrew, notzrim are Christians, and quite literally Nazarenes. And it comes from the Hebrew name for Jesus. You know, Jesus Christ in English is Yeshua HaNotzri, or Jesus of Nazareth. And people who followed him, even in the New Testament, they're called Nazarenes, which in Hebrew was notzrim. And so what this verse could be talking about, literally, obviously, to Jeremiah's listeners, it was the people from the 10 tribes who had been taken as exile, that they would return and they'd be watching over the crops and they'd come up to Jerusalem. But he also could be talking about, it's very possible, you. I mean, he could be talking about notzrim in the Nazarene sense. Is that, I don't know. This is kind of, look, I'm outside the Jewish box saying this. Some of my Jewish brothers and sisters would be saying, no, you can't say that. The Christians are historically our enemies. How could there be a prophecy about the people who persecuted us for 2,000 years? And what do you think about that?
So it's a big question, and I'm not the one that's going to say if it is or it's not.
Yeah.
I'm here, and that's not what drives me either way or the other. Okay. I think it's kind of cool, but what really drives me is that I'm seeing the prophetic redemption no matter what. No matter what, if it's me or if it's whatever, thank God I'm allowed to touch it. Like that I'm able to be here and be a part of it. It doesn't matter what the theological stance is on one way or the other. I'm able to be here and be a part of it, and that's awesome. There are people in the communities here. The mayor of the community of Shiloh, the former mayor, David Rubin, he would say that. He tells our group that all the time.
He says they're the notzrim of this verse?
That's what he says, yeah.
wow. So I'm not the first one to come up with, look, I read it in Hebrew and it popped off the page. We're talking about planting vines in Samaria and harvesting the crops. And so an Orthodox, and he's an Orthodox Jewish person, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And he said, wow. So you heard it right here, people. This isn't just some wacky Karaite thing that these people might be a fulfillment of that prophecy of Jeremiah. Even the Orthodox Jew says, hey, it's them. And there's certainly a prophetic fulfillment of something. And I'm really excited. Now, anything else you want to share with the people?
This is an incredible thing that's happened here. Come and participate. Take the Joshua and Caleb lens, stick it on, and get over here.
Guys, go to Hayovel.com and become part of this and support it in any way you can. I think this is really a special thing. It really is a prophetic fulfillment, and you can be part of that. So Hayovel.com.
All right. I would say that. And lastly, in closing, I would say that there's a place, because I know you say you have a lot of Christians on here as well, right?
Yeah,
so all the Christians out there, there's a totally 100% a place for us. I think there's many times we get, so what's happening? Like, what's our place and where are we fitting in this whole deal? There's a place. There's a place for us to go to our communities, to build support for Israel, to be involved. That's what we're doing here. We're undergirding and strengthening the building up of Israel, and that's 100% right now what needs to happen in the Christian world. So y'all have a job. Don't think you don't have a job. Wow. These Jewish people here obviously have a very specific job of building up the land, moving here, settling the land, and our job is to come and back it up. And we want to see these guys be pressed forward. And so that's really the mandate for every Christian out there. Don't sit on your couch. Don't just listen to this interview. Do something about it. Go get involved in any way you can to build up and strengthen this effort for the heartland, for the entire land of Israel.
Look, you guys, you heard it here from Joshua. You heard it from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 31, verse 6. You heard it from the former mayor of Shiloh reading Jeremiah 31:6. You have a role, and maybe this is what God's role is for you right now in this prophetic fulfillment. And, people actually, when they're done with this, they might say they want more. And it's my understanding that they can actually invite you. You're not here in Israel all the time. They can actually invite you to come and speak at their churches, at their fellowships, at their congregation.
Sure.
And what are some of the things that you talk about? What's going on here? And
Actually, I have a twin brother. His name is Caleb. And
do you seriously have a twin brother?
Yes. Yeah.
You're not joking.
No, I'm not joking.
His name is Joshua. He's a twin named Caleb.
Yeah. So we go around and we actually give.
Are you identical twins?
No, we're not.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
Thank God. He's much different than I.
Okay.
He has the Caleb report and I have the Joshua report. We go around and we give, which is two of the same opinion, same things, but his way. I don't know what I would do if I always got. Oh, wait, did you do that? No, I did not do that. Right. So it's a good thing we're not identical. But
okay.
But we go around and we give reports. And we call it the Joshua and Caleb report.
Wow.
Punned off of the old stories of the Bible, but it's identical. That's what we're doing. It's going to be a report, a goodness of the land, and how to get tapped into it.
So guys, go to Hayovel.com and write to Joshua and Caleb and bring them to your church, bring them to your fellowship. If you're Jewish, bring them to your synagogue, because these are people who are standing up for the people of Israel, and they're helping to be part of what we Jews see as the messianic fulfillment of the restoration of Israel in the land. So bring these. You're willing to speak at synagogues, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We speak everywhere.
And you told me before you've spoken in places as far off as the Congo.
Oh, anywhere in the world where there's people that love Israel. Love the restoration. We're there.
Wow. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This episode of Hebrew Voices was sponsored by Chris from Singapore. Toda. Thank you, La.
You have been listening to Hebrew Voices with Nehemia Gordon. Thank you for supporting Nehemia's Makor Hebrew Foundation. Learn more at nehemiaswall.com.